Before the pulpits, before the pamphlets, before the churches that still stand today, there were two men. Two men who had every reason to stay silent, every reason to kneel, every reason to accept the world as it was, but they didn't. This is the story of Absalom Jones and Richard Allen, born into slavery, carved by hardship, and called by something deeper than survival. They were men of faith, but not of submission. They believed in God, but they refused to believe that God's house should have a balcony for black bodies and a floor for white ones. Philadelphia, 1786. Inside St. George's Methodist Church, they knelt in prayer. They were told to move, to rise, to relocate, to know their place. But instead, they walked out. And behind them, a congregation followed. That walkout wasn't just protest, it was prophecy. They didn't just leave a church, they built a movement. They founded the Free African Society, a sanctuary for the newly freed, a lifeline for the forgotten, and a blueprint for black autonomy. They nursed the sick during the yellow fever epidemic. They buried the dead when others fled. And when they were slandered, they wrote back, with truth, with dignity, and with fire. Jones would become the first black Episcopal priest. Allen would become the first bishop of the AME Church. But titles were never the goal. Freedom was. This story isn't just about religion. It's about resistance. It's about walking out of injustice and walking into legacy. So before we begin, take a breath, because what you're about to hear isn't just history. It's a reckoning. It's a reminder. It's the story of two men who refused to be moved and instead moved a nation.
Imagine this. Philadelphia, 1786. The air is thick with the promise of liberty. But for Black Americans, that promise feels hollow. Inside St. George's Methodist Church, two men are kneeling in prayer. One is Absalom Jones, a man who carries a quiet dignity, having recently purchased his wife's freedom and then his own. The other is Richard Allen, a fiery preacher whose powerful sermons helped him earn the money to buy his own freedom. Together, they had transformed this church. They brought in dozens of black worshipers, building a vibrant, faithful community within its walls. They prayed here, preached here, and found fellowship here. But on this particular Sunday morning, the fellowship was about to be shattered. As Jones knelt, an usher approached and tapped him on the shoulder. The whisper was sharp, insistent. "You must move, go to the balcony." In that moment, a line was drawn. The new gallery had been built specifically to segregate the black congregants they had worked so hard to welcome. Jones, deep in prayer, simply asked to finish. The usher refused, attempting to physically pull him from his knees. Allen looked up, seeing the disrespect, the injustice of it all. The prayer was over. Without a single word exchanged between them, Jones and Allen stood up and they walked, but they didn't walk alone. In a silent, powerful wave of solidarity, the entire black congregation rose and followed them out of the doors of St. George's for the last time. This wasn't just a walkout. This was a declaration. It was the birth of a movement. Leaving that church wasn't an act of defeat. It was the first step toward building something entirely new. In the ashes of that broken community, Jones and Allen laid the foundation for a revolution. Just a year later, in 1787, they established the Free African Society. This wasn't just another club. It was a lifeline. It was the very first mutual aid society for black people in America. Created by black people, it provided food for the hungry, shelter for the homeless, comfort for the sick, and education for the eager. It was a sanctuary built not with bricks and mortar, but with unwavering faith and a radical commitment to community. As they worked side by side, their shared vision for black autonomy began to branch into two distinct, powerful paths. Absalom Jones was drawn to the structure and liturgy of the Episcopal Church. He envisioned a place where black worshippers could practice their faith with dignity, free from the humiliation of segregation. In 1794, his vision became reality with the founding of the African Episcopal Church of St. Thomas. A few years later, in 1802, Jones broke another barrier, becoming the first black priest ordained in the Episcopal Church in the United States. He sought inclusion and respect within an established tradition. Richard Allen, however, burned with a desire for complete independence. He believed that true spiritual freedom required a church that was not just for black people, but led by black people from the ground up. He remained rooted in his Methodist faith but knew it had to be reshaped. His journey culminated in 1816 when he founded the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the AIM Church, the first independent black denomination in the nation. He was consecrated as its first bishop, creating an institution that would be a cornerstone of black life for centuries to come. They chose different roads, but their destination was the same: a future where black people could determine their own spiritual lives and build their own communities. Their path was anything but easy. They faced relentless racism, even in spaces meant for worship. They battled constant economic hardship, raising funds dollar by dollar to build their churches and schools from the ground up. Their character was tested most severely during the devastating yellow fever epidemic of 1793 as the plague ravaged Philadelphia. Jones and Allen organized the black community to care for the sick and bury the dead, risking their own lives when many white citizens fled. Their reward: vicious, false accusations that they were exploiting the crisis for profit. In response, they didn't just get angry, they got organized. They co-authored a pamphlet, a powerful rebuttal that not only defended the integrity of the black volunteers, but also exposed the hypocrisy and racism of their accusers. Despite the struggles, their successes echo into our present day. They didn't just build churches. They created spiritual homes where black voices could lead, where black pain could be healed, and where black joy could be celebrated without apology. The institutions they founded, the AIM Church, the Episcopal congregations, and the very concept of mutual aid networks are still standing, still serving, still empowering communities today. The story of Absalom Jones and Richard Allen is more than just a history lesson. It's a blueprint for resilience. They proved that faith isn't just about solace. It can be a powerful tool for resistance. They taught us that sometimes the most revolutionary act is to walk out of a place that demeans you, not as an end, but as the first step toward building an altar of your own. Their legacy is a testament to the fact that when a community unites, it can turn an act of defiance into an enduring legacy of liberation. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of the trailblazers who shaped our world. See you next time.